Hey everyone, welcome to week 58, day 3. Today is Wednesday, and this is our ongoing ritual week. We've sort of explored the possibility of constructing a painting based upon the relationships that we identify during a ritual. In this case, the ritual of eating, of confronting somebody who is eating. So I think we've done pretty well. Let's see how we do today. Okay, let's get started. This is day 3. This is our third day on our ritual week. And I think this week has been really interesting. I think it's been like a connecting week. In many ways, I think that it was necessary for me to try and understand paintings like these after the reflections that were spurred from last week's exercises. And the reason I think they've been important is that I'm not trying to solve directly the relationships that I wish my figures had with space, with a sense of place. I don't think I'm trying to hone in on that relationship, but I'm almost doing it indirectly. And the way that I am approaching very slowly the subject is by understanding that there can be an action that takes place. And at first, this is the cool thing, at first I thought that the action was going to be the subject of my painting. So I thought that if I portrayed somebody eating, or if I portrayed the act of getting together and eating, that was going to be enough. That was going to signal that ritual of sitting down and having a meal. And again, I thought that that was going to be the focal point of my painting. Just concentrate on that action, portray that action in some way, and that's it, you're good. And I was going to be able to speak about space, but almost as something secondary to what was going on in the painting. I was hoping that the observer would be conscious about the space, but only because it was playing the role, the place where the action was happening. What was important was the action, but surrounding that action was this idea of space. I thought that that was going to be the character of the paintings that I was going to do throughout the week. But something really cool happened, and I think I kind of spotted it in the first painting, the one that we did on Monday with Fer. And it was the interaction with the viewer. Initially, I am the first viewer of that painting in many ways. I'm the person that's obviously painting it, but the first exchange that Fer as a character in the painting is going to have is with me. So I am hyper conscious, if you will, of me acting as the painter, but also as that first observer, that first person that, yes, is looking at the painting in almost like a critical fashion, but is also being looked back. And that initial exchange I thought was quite wonderful because it really felt like Fer was activating something that was happening outside the realm of the painting. And I was like, okay, this is really cool because this is an acknowledgement almost of the viewer that lies outside of the painting. It's not about presenting a painting. It's not just about making this image and then the viewer through compositional devices is going to travel through this painting. You're going to direct the viewer to follow a journey through this painting, this carefully designed journey. Those things obviously happen because the painting is composed and designed and then painted with very particular decisions. But what I thought was happening was something that is foreign to the painting. You know, it doesn't reside in the four corners of the painting. It's actually something that takes place outside the painting. And you could argue that every single painting does that. Every single painting engages the viewer in some way, and there is a dynamic that is being constructed by the painting. And a myriad of variables can determine the character of that exchange. But there's something very special. There's something really, really specific about another figure looking back at you. And the important thing is not looking at you, is looking back at you. There is already a sense of a very active exchange taking place when you start observing the painting. Now, does this happen with every portrait? Because you could argue that every single portrait where the subject is looking at the painter is going to initiate the same dynamics, right? That should be something that happens with every single portrait where the portrait is looking at you. But I would argue that it's not necessarily true. I mean, there are extremely soulful portraits. And by soulful, I mean that when you look at the painting and the painting is looking back at you, you sense this presence of this human being inside this painting. I mean, that's how powerful a great portrait can be. There is almost like this beating heart. There is this idea of humanity. And even though that idea is being realized by paint, dirt, and binder, even though those are our materials, fantastic painters, extraordinary painters are able to imbue those materials with enough character, enough energy, and they're able to connect in such a level with our own humanity, with our own essence, that when we look at a great portrait and we feel that we're engaging, that we're having a conversation with that portrait, it's something that doesn't happen with any other form of painting, with any other subject matter. It just doesn't. This is something that's highly specific about representational painting and finding that we as human beings are being reflected in these paintings. It's something very instinctual and very primeval, I think, what is taking place when you connect with a painting like this, because it is us being able to overcome a ton of barriers, and we can say, okay, this painting may have been painted 400 years ago, and I should have nothing in common with this person that is being portrayed, and yet I feel a very deep connection when I look at this portrait. I mean, those are very, very powerful images. I'm not saying Fer's painting is powerful that way, but I'm saying that in a way I'm acknowledging the viewer. It's almost like she was caught in mid-act, like you're expecting her to be eating, and then suddenly she just lifts her gaze and she acknowledges you as a viewer. She pauses for a couple of seconds to give you the sense that you exist. It's almost like the viewer is conscious and that relationship is suddenly turned on. Does that happen all the time? No, not really. I mean, I could tell you that I've painted portraits where my subject matter, the people that I paint, are looking right at the viewer. And, I'll be honest, many times it just feels like it's a painting about a person just looking past you almost, which is kind of cool. I mean, not every single painting has to engage the viewer in that way. Like I said, there's a ton of variables that are going to work for or against that sort of dynamic, but it doesn't always work. And sometimes you're trying to get those qualities and they escape us. And it's very difficult to determine why it didn't work. My best guess is that in Fer's case, in that first painting, it actually works because there is a sense of expectation. Because we've already established that there's a ritual taking place, that there's something that repeats itself every day. This is everyday life. And we have this previous knowledge of what this means, sitting down and having a meal. So we already know that you're supposed to lift that fork up and eat that waffle and then put it down and cut a bit of waffle and then repeat the same action. So we have a sense of what to expect. We kind of know what comes before this image and what's going to come after this image. We are caught mid-act. So in that sense, I think that the illusion of the expectation is what detonates all these neurons in your brain and is telling you, okay, she was supposed to be doing something, but now I've almost stormed in. I've interrupted this action as a viewer, and she is acknowledging me. To be able to charge a very simple painting with that is something that's super, super cool. Sometimes, these things that sound so complicated don't have to happen when you paint a painting for 2 months. You could paint something for 2 years. And if the right relationships are not being activated, then again, this thing that you're trying to do is going to escape you. 2 years of work is not granting you the ability to access those things. Painting can be so wonderfully giving, but it can also be horribly unforgiving. If you don't recognize the things that you have to push, and if you don't feed it the appropriate things, it's not going to give what you expect back. So this is something that's really complex, I guess, but it's something that we can access in a very simple way through, daily exercises. This is not something that is going to be closed to us just because we're doing a 3, 4, 5 hour painting. So that's something to keep in mind. And I think that because I started acknowledging that maybe what I'm doing is not about the action, it's not about the act, but it's about the relationship that the viewer or myself as that first viewer is going to have in that first instance, the way those expectations set off this chain of events that really activates the painting. I was like, yeah, these paintings can be about those things, about that mid-act. So yesterday's painting, the one that we did for Spanish Tuesdays, Martes de Español, again, an invitation for everyone to practice their Spanish. I think that was a very cool painting because I didn't want paintings to become just this confrontation. I wanted a play between Monday's painting and then Tuesday's painting. And Tuesday's painting is about everything. I know that sounds like a lot, but but I'm speaking about this kind of all-encompassing energy. It's almost like you're trying to tell the viewer, okay, now that I have your attention, you're not going to focus on anything. It wasn't about that bit of food. It wasn't about that waffle. It wasn't about anything specific that can make up, that meal. It's not about food per se. It's about action and exchange and engagement. Those are the key words here. So by spreading everything out the way we spoke about last week, that we could spread all that energy to the four corners of the painting, we were able to say, okay, background, space, atmosphere, figure, table, food, they are all the same. They know no boundaries. They're not tied to denominations. They are all one. Painting can be such a beautifully harmonizing element. The physical sense of paint. It can just say, I am here before everything else. It can be clay-like. It can be this thing that can transform into anything. It's almost like alchemy. It is there to play the role of many things. It is there to be the universe. So it is beautiful when painting, at least, it's beautiful for me. Again, this is something entirely subjective, but it is beautiful when painting can say, I am here before everything else. I am going to play the role of everything. I am going to be light. I'm going to be background. I'm going to be atmosphere. I'm going to be Danny. I'm going to be her expression. I'm going to be her motivation. I'm going to be her slightly turning away. I'm going to be her grasping hand. I'm going to be her drink. I'm going to be that boxed food. I'm going to be the table. I'm going to be everything. Your first contact with that sense of everything is going to be through paint. Paint is going to come first. Paint is ever present. So I thought that was really nice. I thought that initially on Monday we could speak about we are eating, but you interrupted this ritual. That could have been a better title for this week. Interrupted ritual. That would have been really nice. That has such a nice feel to it. But anyways, let's call it ritual because that was my expectation. Wednesday, I realized, okay, things can change. That's totally fine. This is not a sin. Sometimes us artists, we think that everything is set in stone. And if we deviate from that, we're not being solid artists, mature enough to understand that there should be a character of wholeness to what we do, that there should be a character of certainty underlying everything we do. No. We are human beings. We're normal human beings. And as human beings, we can doubt and we can question and we can learn. And we can learn on the fly. We can do a painting thinking that we're doing something. And then the second painting we do, we go like, oh my God, that's not what I was trying to do. Now I'm trying to do this. Who cares if somebody says, oh my God, look at him. He's being indecisive and look at her. She has certainty. She's so much stronger. No. I think certainty is great. I mean, knowing what you want to say and being able to achieve it through painting, fantastic. But it doesn't mean that that's the right road. It doesn't mean that that's the only way to go. I think we castigate doubt constantly, and we do it almost irrationally because as human beings, we doubt every single day of our lives. We doubt the smallest things and we doubt the biggest of things that make up our lives. We understand that as part of our human nature, but when we paint, we're like, okay, there's no place for doubt here. In here, we're all about certainty. Yeah, because we have this stupid idea that everyone has to be like Sorolla, or everyone has to be like Fortuny, or like Ramon Casas, or Sargent, or Zorn. These ideas of painting that sometimes are just unmanageable. They're so big, and they kind of sell you this idea that you have to be that good that you don't realize that, hey, perhaps these are just extraordinary human beings. And maybe, and this is not a bad thing, maybe I'm not extraordinary. Maybe I'm just ordinary. Maybe I'm just an ordinary human being that paints. And that is a wonderful thing too. Maybe painting is not this thing that's meant to be done by extraordinary people. Maybe, hundreds of thousands of people in this planet could benefit from painting honestly. Maybe it's a beautiful thing. So whenever we set our expectations so high, when we realize that we are never going to reach those just absurd objectives that we have set for ourselves, we crash so hard because we weren't able to see that there were wonderful things going on because all we wanted to do was paint like Sargent. And if we don't paint like Sargent, then we fail. And that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. And I have no idea why this conversation steered into talking about Sargent and expectations and certainty. But whatever brought us here, I'm sure that it was worth it. So those were the two paintings that we did on Monday and Tuesday. And today, I wanted to charge the painting with a very different energy. And before I talk just a little bit about today's painting, I want to acknowledge something. Yesterday, I talked how this whole week was almost like this love letter, this homage to Antonio Lopez. Antonio Lopez is one of the biggest painters alive. Many people, especially representational painters, naturalist painters, realist painters, they consider him to be the biggest painter alive, and he is that big. I already consider him a master. You know how people nowadays throw this term of master of painting, contemporary master? I think that's stupid. Only time can give you a sense of who really was masterful in the way they established a relationship with painting and with paint. And I think throwing that term around just serves no purpose. It's not good for anyone. It's not good for the person that's being called a contemporary master, and it's not a cool thing to do to the old masters that really are old masters. So for some reason in my brain, I was saying how yesterday Antonio Lopez belongs to this pantheon of old masters already. He is that huge. He is that extraordinary. And he has given painting so much that I almost feel it's unbearable when you try to digest all the things that he's done. So I was talking about him yesterday. This is an older generation of painting. But today I want to acknowledge somebody who had a tremendous impact on who I am as a painter and as a human being. And that's Graciela. That's Grace Samosir. And Grace is a tremendous artist. I was her teacher, but that's where I'm going to stop because honestly, I didn't teach her anything. Nothing. Not a single thing. If anything, I think that in this exchange that I've had with Grace over the years, and I really consider myself blessed for being so lucky to have known her and accompanied her for a year and a half maybe in her career. The people that knew her, all the people that were fortunate enough to work beside her when she was here in Bogota in Colombia, again, we were lucky, we were blessed because Grace is one of those people that is so naturally talented. I mean, this doesn't take away from the fact that she works like crazy. She works her ass off. It's ridiculous how much she works. But there's just this raw, natural talent to what she does. I mean, as a draftsperson, oh my God, oh my Lord. I mean, you will rarely see someone that has so much strength, so much power with drawing. I mean, she is one with drawing. And the reason I'm mentioning Grace, aside from giving her a shout out, because I would give her a shout out every single video, she's that amazing and she's that cool and she's that good, is that I think she does the images that I thought I was going to do at the beginning of the week. And I think she does them, 100,000 times better than I could ever do them. She is brilliant at portraying family, loved ones, people that are close to her, and this everyday little slice of life that is just sitting down, eating a meal. And again, that's what I thought, that energy that she has and that power that she has with these drawings is what I thought my initial paintings were going to look like, to feel like. At least that's what I hoped for. I mean, I wish I could have like the tiniest percentage of boldness and just fearlessness that she has in many of her drawings. But that was my hope. And I was very glad that this week's exercises turned into something else. Because honestly, if I try to do something that Grace is doing and I do it in her terms, oh my God, I'm going to lose 100 out of 100 times because she is that good and because she is doing it with that much soul. So I'm very lucky that I found an alternative for these paintings because now I don't have to compete with Grace's stuff that is so incredible. So the way in which, my paintings kind of transformed throughout the week, I think it's kind of picking up steam with Fer again, a more, I always say feral Fer. I love this attitude of this, wilder Fer. She's kind of almost annoyed by the fact that you interrupted this ritual. She's kind of pissed. She's about to twist that cap off that soda bottle. Again, we have that really high sense of expectation. We know what she's doing and we know what is going to happen right after that. But, she's acknowledging you. She's like, oh, you again? You showed up again? And she's almost like fed up. And I think that that's a super cool attitude that Fer is able to tap into. But it also speaks about me constantly just asking Danny and Fer and Samu and my mother, asking so much from them. It's not about painting them. I think that painting, again, is just this sub-product of all the reflection that I'm doing. But when I ask them to stop and pose or to stop and just, freeze so I can take a photograph, this is so much bigger than posing for a painting. What I'm asking of them is their help. I'm asking for their help with the hopes of figuring something out. And the most heartbreaking thing is when you ask so much of their help and you're still confused by the end. You still don't know what you're doing. And that sometimes is very draining when our loved ones or partners or friends, they make these sacrifices for us in posing for us or in just giving us their time and sharing their time with us. And we're not able to tap into whatever we thought we were going to be able to. And we feel ashamed and we don't want them to see their paintings. Everyone that's listening here that maybe has posed for a painting, trust me, we are so grateful and we feel so bad when the result just doesn't meet our expectations. But part of it is also that you guys made such an effort for us and we couldn't return that favor. We couldn't give back anything to you. So whenever I see Fer just fed up, it's almost like this realization that, yeah, she knows she's putting all that effort in. And it's like my responsibility to push to try and figure things out. That burden is on my shoulders and I have to be willing to carry it because they are doing their part. When I paint, it's time for me to do my part. So she's looking at us like, oh, it's you again? I thought I got rid of you on Monday. I love that attitude. Again, that exchange, the painting that is happening outside the painting. I don't know. It's something magical. I can't describe it any other way. It's pretty amazing. Anyways, that was today's painting. Again, huge respect, huge shout out to Grace. She's one of the most brilliant artists that I'll ever meet in my life. I'm sure of it. I'm sure life will take me to many different places. And I'm super grateful that I've been able to meet very many different people. But I think Grace will always occupy this place in my heart where I know I met somebody who was special. As soon as I met her, it was like, oh my God, this person is just gifted. There's this star right on top of them, well-deserved star just shining down on them, and she's that amazing. So anytime I can speak about her, I will very gladly do so. I'm so happy I found like an escape hatch and I was able to talk about something different during this week, because if I was trying to compete with Grace, she won. She would have won that race 1,000 out of 1,000 times. So Grace, you're awesome. We love you. Anyways, that's going to be it for today. See you guys tomorrow. I don't know where this train is taking us. I think it's going to be exciting. Only way to know where we're headed is to show up tomorrow and to see where this painting is going to drop us off. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for hanging out. Bye.